Live. We are live. What? Where's Dustin? I don't know. He's in Portugal. We got Matt Knudsen here, Matty K. Um, he has graciously stepped in to help host, and very stoked about this. Why do we keep having? I have all these. Oh no, I don't want this stuff. Oh no, cancel. I am learning to go through all this stuff with running all the shenanigans on here. I hope we're live. No, we are. So,
Man.
yes, we're live, so we should be good. Welcome to Weekend Hangover, episode 49. We've got Mandalika GP, lots of crazy stuff to talk about. I am, it's nuts. I don't even know where to start because
Yeah, it's been a lot of interesting things. But let me first just say thanks for having me on here, and it's a pleasure to join the crew here and help host. Not trying to fill in for Dustin, and I'm sure you're not trying to fill in for Dustin. So we're just trying to have a good time and talk some shit about some motorcycles and racing.
yes, exactly. As we have fun on the show, you know, I was in New Orleans last week with my good friend Jeff May for work, and we were doing a pretty cool, what do you call it, trade show, and definitely I got to comment and check in. That was fun. Um, Checked in on the live stream, so I know Dustin was bringing up the silly season, and that was something that we were going to talk about. But it's all good, dude. No worries.
Yeah.
We're talking motorcycles, so it doesn't matter when we talk about it. I just want to have stuff to talk about, and guess what? Don't need to worry about it because we got tons to talk about. We had the crash
That race this weekend
world.
was just. I mean, I don't think anybody could throw out a bet that would close out that race for anything, right? Like, I don't think anybody would have bet on Furman, getting first place. I think everybody was thinking he was inching forward, but to go in there and try and take a first place, and to be honest, I don't know that Marquez would have had anything for him if he didn't get wrecked at the beginning of the race. Like, he just seemed like everything glued together for him, and it just kind of meshed, and he was there, and he showed why Ducati has invested his time and effort into developing and putting him on a bike. So,
yeah.
you're going to start talking about like your opinion, your thoughts on the wreck, like who was at fault, what went wrong.
We can talk about this. I want people to know who you are. I want to hear a little bit about just a quick elevator pitch about Matt.
Yeah, so I'm just a normal guy that goes out and pretends to race ever so often, and I've been doing track days for a while, a little older, but I got kind of a late show or start to doing track days and things like that. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I made the decision that I wasn't going to street ride anymore. I sold my last street bike and dedicated my time to just going to the racetrack as much as I possibly could. And so, yeah, I've being in that life, getting into racing and just trying to get as much, content when it comes to what's available, whether it's Moto America, World Superbike, MotoGP. Just started diving a little bit into BSB. One of my riding buddies, Benji, was like, "Hey, you got to really check this stuff out. It's entertaining and it's really tight racing." It's taken me a little time to get kind of like used to some of those really, really tight courses and kind of get in through that. But I'm just a fan, just like everybody else, like just enjoying the sport, not just from the sidelines, but trying to go out there and turn laps and pretend like I'm quick.
Yeah. No. And you've been a long time watcher of the podcast.
Yeah, again, it's again about like content, right? Like, and you and I talked about this before, right? Like, I think the fun thing about this is what you guys have always put out there, right? It's just riders just talking smack. It's almost like every single event that you go to, and you and all your riding buddies are sitting in the paddock just talking smack. whether it's about racing or about each other and things like that. And that's the same kind of vibe. And that's what kind of interests me into watching this on a regular. Obviously, I get some of the other content that I think is really entertaining, which is, Dustin's podcast with Richard, which entertaining on one side of it, but also very educational, just kind of see what happens on the behind the scenes, and getting somebody that has that much experience in the paddock and dedication to the sport is always entertaining. And looking at the details of what he's looking at and analysis as far as riders and tracks and things like that, it's pretty awesome. So again, thanks for having me. And it's an honor to be sitting here. And if anybody wants to know, I had to do some extra favors just to get invited to come. Just know it's not a cheap ride. Okay, guys, everybody's probably questioning, why did this, jerk get an invite?
I know John Roddy. John Roddy was trying to get in on it, and he was raising a hand. I thought it was funny. No, I couldn't have thought of any better to step in that I know, because we had that great chat at the track day. Matt came down to Roebling and enjoyed some laps at Roebling for the first time. Yep. And so we got to meet in person and chat quite a bit on Sunday night. So definitely appreciate that. So let's get into it. Did I miss something? Did I miss the Dustin missing memo? Yes, he is in Portugal at Estoril with Attack. So they are there already, setting up and getting things going. Apparently, Dustin had 70-pound bag, and 30 pounds of it was his, and I guess the rest is resin. Apparently, some resin. I was like, I guess he needed fiberglass resin for repairing bodywork. I don't know. That's all I could think of.
Let's hope that was the type of resin and it wasn't California-based resin.
No. No. So, thank you, Chunky Buns, for jumping in right at the moment. We're about to talk about the crash heard around the world. I saw probably the best analysis from Neil Hodgson on his TNT Bikes Instagram page. And pretty much what happened was Marco came through that corner and the back end stepped out, slid a little bit, which caused him to rotate the bike better than expected. And with that slide, he was able to pick the bike up a little bit more, and he was on the drive side of the tire before Mark could even get there. So he accelerated right through that corner and realized, holy crap, in the split instant, I'm right up on Mark. You saw him hit the jam on the brakes, and he had nothing left, and he hit Mark.
Yeah, I think that, one of the things I think is pretty awesome, I think, is the TNT coverage, TNT Sports. I think their breakdown of, if you get to watch it online or whatever the case is, like you see their clips or whatever, man, they break down a scenario like no other, right? I think their broadcast is unfortunately 10 times better than the world broadcast, in my opinion. There's so much more content that they're providing and breaking it down, and they're really kind of opening eyes, because if you just watched it, it really just kind of looked like, oh, he didn't know what he was doing. He tried to take a different trajectory, and he just hauled off and hit Marquez. I think Marquez did the right thing, and he knew what happened. And he threw out that message on Instagram and said, "Hey, look, just don't blame him." Right.
I got a lot of respect for him for trying to tamp down the flames, because a lot of hate was getting thrown, and Mark's like, "Look, man, it's a racing incident. We all know he's done it a few times." Took back to Portimao a couple years ago when he took out Luca Marini and Johan Mir, and it is what it is. Like, I give him so much respect for doing that, and he's sitting in a hospital right now, and he's got to miss out on Australia and Malaysia.
Yeah, two rounds he's out, right? So I think looking at that thing, I'm not a huge Marquez fan. Those of us have been around long enough, right? We remember the Rossi days, and he was the guy that was punching everybody in the face, but he was doing it really hard and really aggressive. And those of us that remember him in the Moto2 days were like, he was a bin it or win it. Like there was no other thing. And he entered into MotoGP with that same kind of mentality, and it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like he's still a very skilled rider. He's got his racecraft is, far exceeds most human beings that's out there. And you got to respect that, even if you're not a Marquez fan.
Absolutely. Yeah, the dude can ride a bike, and there's Ducati's come a long way, and there's that whole discussion with Pecco being dead last and nowhere to be found, and he rode Morbidelli's bike at Misano, which apparently is why he had good results won both races at Motegi. So it's like, what happened this weekend? He was like 3 seconds off the pace, 4 seconds off the pace. It was insane. So
his times were just like, he was so far back, right? It was like, is the rest of the pack going to catch up to him before the end of this race, right? Like, or is he just going to just hang it up and be like, you know what, I can't do this anymore, right? And it's weird to go from like dominating at Motegi and then showing up to the next race and just being that far off base. Like there's got to be a lot to that story, like the mental fatigue that he's going through and trying to champion through that stuff.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling, right? But if it doesn't feel right to him, like we've seen that in MotoGP. I think there's been a couple of riders that you could claim out that if they don't have the right feel, it doesn't, like they don't push through. Like where I think you could take somebody like Marquez and he can figure out something. Like he was struggling on that Honda for years, but he was still trying to figure it out, and that's talent over anything else, right? And
willing that bike to win.
Yeah. And then you get somebody like Pecco, and he's got all the talent, but he's just missing that other piece where it's just like if he doesn't have the exact right feel, he can't ride around it. And it's
he has a specific window he likes to ride in, and if the bike isn't in it, he can't push. Which I'd say a lot of guys kind of close to that front have a hard time. I think Mark, Rossi seemed to have that back in the day. Casey Stoner.
You got to give him credit riding around on a Ducati that nobody else could turn any laps on. So it's few and far between where you get that mix of somebody that can ride around something that's not perfect, but
I think Coppolas came out with quite the Pecco. If Pecco keeps it up, he'll be on the MIE Honda and World Superbike, which is
that's a low blow.
Yeah, we got High Rev Trev popping up with what do you say? Same thing happened with Mark. Like it was at Honda. He was the only one to be able to win on the Honda because they built around him. Now New Duck is the same. And I
think there's something to be said about that, right? Like Mark took a gamble of jumping over there, and we all know he took a pay cut to go over to Ducati and run on the Gresini machine last year, right? You cannot lie to yourself and think that Ducati was sitting there like going, oh my God, like they're collecting data from day one as soon as he gets on their bike.
Oh yeah.
And if they weren't trying to figure out like how do they set up that bike for his, his needs and his talent, like you're lying to yourself if you think they were just like, here's your 2015 or 2025 Ducati, go have fun. Like they started that development on day one when he started throwing his leg over Ducati.
Yeah, and now the thing is the dude rides in such a unique fashion. Nobody else, like the Honda, nobody else could ride that thing. I mean, Cal Crutchlow did win on it, and he did pretty darn good considering. That's pretty much. I mean, Danny Pedrosa, but he was starting to fade as the bike got worse, and he couldn't do it anymore. And you see him on the KTM, the dude's still can ride, and he's still up there, even though he's not racing actively, on a regular basis. He's still he's still doing good at Jerez, and last year he did amazing. So it just seems like it's a blessing and a curse. You get arguably the most talented rider, right? I put him up there with Casey Stoner, like talent wise, and being able to ride the craziness out of a bike, right? Rossi was just a different animal. He's that dude was so smooth, and he could ride a bike, and he could outride a lot of people on it. I just think that Mark had a bit more will and cat like reflexes to he's just has that feeling, just like Casey. And you got him on a bike. You can just hand him a bike, and he'll just go win on it. Now, Ducati is the best bike on the grid by far, and it's like, all right, is it going to go downhill from here? I mean, that's the question right now.
I mean, you look at it, right, and you say, if you're Ducati, what are you going to do? You're going to push all your chips into developing a bike that is going to win you a championship, right? And they knew that they were going to do that. But if you look at the current standings right now, Marquez is number 1, Alex is number 2, and Pecco's number 3. So are they not winning in their strategy?
Right? They are, for sure.
So you can't knock them for going and saying, like, everybody says, well, are they developing a bike around Marquez? Sure. But are they winning the championship? Are they going to win the manufacturer championship regardless if they develop it around?
They won the team championship.
Yeah. So they're doing the right thing, right? It may not be entertaining from a fan perspective and be like, oh, well, this like, is everybody else that's going to be on Ducati not going to be able to even compete against Marquez? Do they care? Right? Like they're setting up their mechanism so that they're the most dominant manufacturer in there. And statement number 1 is winning the championship. And then number 2 is, where's all of our other riders land in there? I'm looking at standings right now, and you look at Fabio Morbidelli. I mean, number 6. I wouldn't have predicted that, going into this year. I'd have been like, oh, that guy's a back marker. What is he doing in there? DG's number 7 on there, right? He's on a 25, and he's the proof positive that motorcycle is not designed for anybody else. But he's still in that conversation, right? Like, he's still getting points, right? So Ducati's doing the right thing. You can't knock them for like saying, hey, we're pushing all of our chips into Marquez.
We're all willing KTM and Aprilia and Honda to get back up there, because we want that disparity in racing. But
100% from a fan perspective, you want the most competitive, field out there from the manufacturers and pushing in there. You mentioned Honda, right? But I think they had a pretty good showing, and they continually impress me every single weekend. They seem like they're making steps forward. Like they're not on the sharp end, but they're not on the last part of the grid.
They're at the top third, because Mir had that podium in the Grand Prix at Motegi, which was huge.
Massive.
That was huge for them. And sadly, poor guy had a horrible race. And Luca Marini looked like he was right there for the podium. And him and Raul. I was really impressed with Raul Fernandez too on the Aprilia. So,
I mean, there's light at the end of the tunnel of it being a Ducati Cup, right? I think these other manufacturers are really starting to push their chips in. I think the Japanese market is starting to develop things, and we'll start to see them push forward. We're seeing Honda. Honda has a huge budget for it, but I think they've been super conservative in years past, just trying to recover from, the Marquez days. But now they're dumping their development money into that program, and we'll start to see them continue to move forward. And
KTM has already released their 850 motor. They just ran it on the deck for the first time, which was, they got year and a half. So
good on them. Because I think everybody was doubting whether or not if they were going to survive that whole restructuring deal. And there was still
Yeah.
they were like, yep, we're good. The new CEO of KTM showed up to the race right after the restructuring deal. And then right after that weekend, it was like, it doesn't look like we've hit bottom yet. Right. So everybody was like, oh, but I think the statement from them was what's released and say, hey, we are still doing development. They're committed to the sport and they're still going to keep on, trucking along for MotoGP, which is great from a fan perspective. We don't need to lose a manufacturer again.
No, and I think with the two guys that Honda's running right now, they're pretty solid journeyman riders. Luca's still developing a little bit, slowly but surely, but dude's getting there, and I think the bike's coming to him. They just need that. It's either one of the two guys stays, and they need a star. They need somebody who can ride that thing in anger. And I knew that there were talks about Jorge Martin going to that team. But from this weekend, I think this race was kind of a one-off-ish type race because of the conditions, the track. They were running goofy tires because they were running soft front and medium rear for the most part, except for Pedro Acosta, which I wanted to bring up because I'm Captain White Wheel, and he was not running the white wheel because he needed to keep heating that tire, and because he ran the medium. And you know what? Dude was fighting all the way to the end. Like, he was fighting all the way to the end, which was, good on him because he pulled a second place out of it. He got by Alex Marquez and, hucked it in there, and he fought. And that was a heck of a ride. Was a heck of a ride.
And great for the sport because we need that next name, right, to come up there and set the tone. And you got to root for these kids that are coming up and get them on the sharp end of the race because it's great for the sport, right? Because we're not going to get Marquez forever, right? And we're not going to get all these other riders in there forever. I'm kind of shocked that some of them made it into the next season. They've already gotten a seat, right? I think to your point around KTM though is that I think their farm system might be, probably the best farm system that they have through the GP paddock, right? Like they're cultivating talent on a regular basis, and they can pick and choose where they want to go with that talent. I think Yamaha's starting to do that a little bit now, where they've got a good farm system coming up through there. But I think if KTM can stick around and they can continue to fund that, that Moto3, Moto2, and then into MotoGP, like it might take a little bit longer, but they've got a pretty good farm system going there where they're developing at a very young age.
This year was very unique because they've got Chan on Chu. No, Dennis on Chu. I can't remember which one. And Colin Vaya. And that kid's kind of And then they had that one guy. Was it Daniel Munoz came in there or whatever? Was that the one that came in and subbed in and crushed it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So that was pretty awesome. Thanks, Trev. So, their farm system was really good for a while. And I think, I think Pedro was kind of like maybe it's because he went to Tech 3 and then they finally got him over to factory KTM, and then everybody, there's just kind of mix up. Like, they weren't able to start funneling kids in there because, like, look who's there now in Tech 3. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think there's a thought process that could be had around that, that they kind of like, again, like I said before, I'm kind of shocked that some of the commitments they've already made for 2026 were like some of the riders that went into 2025. I think we all, from a fan perspective, would go like, it's a little bit of a head scratcher, right? Like, and then 2026, I think, is a bigger head scratch, but I think there's like, we're going to take experience over a new rider to go in there and start trying to, just get us through. Let's just get through because 2027 is going to be a transitional year. And maybe as they can use those riders to start doing development on the new platform, it's going to be easier for them to make that transition as opposed to taking
Yeah.
a rookie rider and throwing them out there and say, hey, go compete. And then also when we get test allocations to go and test the new configurations, go out there and test that and give us your feedback. And they're just lost in the sauce, right?
What's interesting is the Ital Trans team has Diego Moreira, who we can roll into Moto2, but like that dude's rookie season, and he's 9 points from winning the championship. Like there's a lot going on with those other teams that are having the better riders because KTM's jammed up, and maybe they had just lined up the train a little too much, and all these other really good riders are starting to funnel out. I mean, the Blue Crew guys, Ivan Guevara, he's looking a lot better. We got Diego. Then you got the CF Moto team with both of those dudes are pretty solid. Elgato and David Alonso, like those dudes are ripping, and they're new guys too. And that was Jake Dixon's old team. So we're bouncing back and forth.
I think it still comes back to the same thing. Like we're still looking at like the future of MotoGP, right? And I think you're right. Like there's a good amount of talent that should probably in normal times probably get the opportunity to make that next step forward. I just don't think that the GP paddock is ready to make that gamble with that transition that they're going to make in 2026, which again, from a fan perspective kind of sucks because we need some fresh blood in that GP paddock that we're just not going to get.
And that's a lot of money to throw, a lot of money into hardware and development when it goes to, we need an American for sure. And that's probably the hardest thing for us as American fans is we just don't have that. We don't have that rider yet. Joe Roberts. Do you think he's kicking himself for not taking that Aprilia ride when he could have?
I think he thought he had a pathway to win a championship in Moto2, and he was like, I can go in there and get a one and done in MotoGP. But if I get a championship in Moto2, that's a better resume than a one and done. And so from a career perspective, I think he probably says that he made the right move. But you don't know what's going to happen, right? And ultimately, we know what happened, right? Like he was close, and then he had a bad accident, and that washed out that season for him, right? And he's been in recovery since. So I think in retrospect, you like, if I had to make the choice again, maybe I would take that one and done. That 1 year ride and chance on Aprilia that he didn't have any faith in, right? But you listen to his interview about that, right? And he was like the second or third choice, and that kind of helped him make that decision as well. Is that he was like, if I'd have been the first choices, if like they were knocking on my trailer and saying, hey, we want you on there, it was like, hey, we wanted somebody else, but they didn't take the ride, so you're next up, and I think that helped him make that decision.
Yeah,
it sucks. And I think as us crazy Americans, we still desire to have some red, white, and blue blood that's sitting in the MotoGP paddock, turning laps. And does he get another chance again? In 2027, like, is somebody going to take the gamble on him, or is he just going to be at that point in time too long in the tooth for the GP paddock to take a risk on him?
Yeah, and it just depends on how much Ital Trans paid him, and then American Racing and all that stuff, personal sponsors, because like that wasn't the Trackhouse ride, that was the factory Aprilia ride. That was the one that Sam Lowe's was leaving.
Yeah,
and back when it was Gresini Aprilia, and you got like that's your to be totally honest, that was just one shot. He wasn't getting another one because there's too many. Like if you were to look at the whole landscape, you got to take it regardless of what you think the outcome is going to be, because that's it. They call you, that's it. You got all these other Spanish and Italian kids coming up that arguably probably better riders than you because they've been doing it for so long, and you know he's a hell of a rider, but he's just hasn't been consistently fast. And you get an opportunity to go ride that thing, just like Sam Lowe's did, and you know you will land somewhere after that.
Yep.
You will. Like, there is money to be made on the table in any series outside of MotoGP. You could get a World Superbike ride. You can get all. Once you hit MotoGP, it's like, dude, ridden a MotoGP bike. He's probably got a lot of information or whatever. Like, at the end of the day, he probably could have learned anything and just been like, I'm a MotoGP rider. Remy Gardner got a ride out of it.
He could have gone to the World Superbike MotoGP retirement, plan, just like everybody else that doesn't, that does their time in a seat in MotoGP. They're like, all right, well, we'll give this World Superbike
and make some connections in Europe, and then or come back here. Like, he had a chance to come back here, and there's plenty of options out there. I just think he missed his shot because think about it. If you don't take it now, and you think you can do it the next year, but then there's the next like crazy star that shows up, and then you're like, crap, like, this kid's amazing. He's on a great ride. You're on American Racing, not the top team, although they're good, but they're not the top team. You got KTM, you got Mark VDS, all that stuff. So anyways, when you get your opportunity, you got to take it. Plain and simple. So
it was kind of shocking to say that, like, he kind of turned that down, right? And you feel for him, but it is like what you said, right? Like, you got a shot, an opportunity, like, that's not going to come. It may never come again, right? And he's probably looking at that scenario right now where it's not going to be an option for him, right? Like,
like Garrett Gerloff got, he got his call up being on the Yamaha GRT team, and then getting to ride Rossi's bike a couple times. That was it. He ain't getting a GP bike again.
Yeah, until Rossi showed up and said, all right, son, give me the bike back.
Yeah, you talked to him about it and all that stuff, and I'm sure he was just like, what'd you think? Like, maybe you got a little bit of information from it, but Garrett got to do his thing. He had that one practice in the mixed conditions, and he crushed it. It was everybody like, oh, dude. But he's on the downturn unless he gets some sort of good factory ride at BMW again. But he just didn't gel with that bike. He's doing okay in the Kawasaki. It's tough because we all love Garrett. He's a great dude, super nice guy. We all cheered for him last year on the BMW when he was doing really well, and he always has a late charge at the end of the season, and that's pretty much. I think that's pretty much all she wrote, because he's on that Cowie, and then it's going to be. There's other people that's moving around, and then that's it, man. So so GP to close out. What a wild race, crazy race. There was so much going on. A lot of new people got to fight for the win and podiums, and it was very enjoyable. Even Fermin checked out. Like, the rest of the racing, and to get the podium was pretty awesome. Moto2.
Well, before you move off of MotoGP, right? So we're going to head into next weekend with Australian, right? GP. And looking at the results from last year, you had Jorge Martin, Marc Marquez, and Bastianini were your top three riders. Bastianini is clearly not, like, I think he had some issues last round. So, like, those top threes, like, aren't going to be in there, right? Pecco was fourth. Morbidelli was fifth. What do you think, if you had to predict something, is going to be your top three riders that are going to show up and kill it at Phillip Island?
Phillip Island?
Yeah.
Man. I think Fermin's going to be there. Pedro's going to be with the bit. He's going to go after it. Alex Marquez is going to be up there for sure. He's just riding good on the bike. Hmm.
It's a tough one now that you've got a reduced field, right? Like you can't go to the usual suspects. So that's why I threw it out there as a question.
That's a hard one. That's a hard top three, but I'm gonna say Fermin's got a lot of momentum behind him, and I think he thinks he can win again. I think Pedro's gonna ride the crap out of that KTM, and it's fast, and you got that long straight. Like that's
yeah,
fast.
I think
Yeah,
I
I
think the
think.
safe
Do you
bet
think?
would be top three Ducatis, right?
Yeah. Do
I
you
think
think
that's
Bez
the
is
safe
gonna be
bet.
up there?
What's it? Who?
Bez?
Um, no,
Did he didn't get hurt really bad. He got banged
no,
up.
but I don't know that they're like. It seems like that track is going to be like. I think again the safe bet's going to be Ducati. I think that straightaway and that high speed first turn is going to be an advantage to Ducatis all over again. And I think that they're gonna go out there, and I think you're going to get three Ducatis sitting on the front three positions.
I'd have to agree with Jordan Long. He was talking about Alex and Bez going to be up there. I think Bez is going to be back up there because he wants that third in the championship.
Yeah,
So I think he's gonna. I think he's the bikes. I think the bike will go well at Phillip Island because you got to think that turn two when they go in turn one, then they straight line it, and then he can
yeah.
get it in for turn two, and then they've got that bike turns really well. So, what about you?
I mean, I think you got to go. I think hopefully Furman comes out with a little bit of energy coming out of that win. So, does he turn that into a first place? I don't think so. Maybe a third. Um, and then Alex, I think, is going to see the opening there to go out there and take a first. So I throw him in first. And I think Morbidelli kind of goes well there. Like he's got a track history of doing okay at that track. And as much as I think,
right,
yeah, just like, yeah, if as long as he keeps it on two wheels, right. And he doesn't throw it down the track. Like I think he's going to get a position. But my prediction is that Alex checks out at some point in time in the race and knows that he doesn't have to, follow behind Alec or his brother Mark, and he takes advantage of that and says, "This is my weekend to show what a race weekend would look like without Marcus being here, Mark rather." So that's my prediction. Like I could be completely wrong. You could be right. I think there's a possibility that the Aprilias could find something and make magic work at that track.
Yeah.
I don't know that KTM just doesn't have a really good history at that track. Notoriously, like those riders have always been riding around problems at that track. Like that track is pretty unique in which if you develop one minor problem, it can ruin your entire race weekend there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like they've got all those clicks like to get it around that track, make tires last, and do it. Maybe they shock us and they can figure it out. Maybe they're getting that little bit closer and closer, but who knows? I don't know that they're going to be able to throw it on the podium though.
Yeah, I'm curious if Pedro's going to be able to ride the crap out of that thing. Yeah. So yeah, let's roll into Moto2. The big thing is Manu Gonzalez got disqualified, which is wild.
Who gets fired for that?
No, disqualified.
I know, but like,
yeah. Who gets fired? Yeah, the guy who put the ECU in, right?
I mean, is that the definition? If you aren't cheating, you're not trying hard enough.
Right. They're all supposed to be the same.
Yeah. How do you mess that up?
I don't get it, or the wrong firmware or something. But
right,
wild, crazy. But that mistake just closed the gap big time. He was 34 points ahead, and Diego, won the race, but it's like it would have been only 29 points or whatever. Now it's 9.
Yeah.
And that Diego kid is an animal.
Yeah, he seems switched on. Like when you watch him, like if he can glue it all together and put a complete race together, like that kid seems like the next one up for sure.
Yeah, and I was thinking back. Manu Gonzalez came from Supersport 300,
Yeah,
which was crazy, and he was riding the old Yamaha VR46 Master Camp bike, right? And he was riding around the top 10, and then he started to get them top fives, and everybody's like, ooh. And then next thing you know, he jumps on the Intact bike, which that team hasn't been up at the front for quite a while. They had Marcel Schroeder on there. They had, a couple other guys on there. It was usually like a German or German-ish team of riders. And then, they get two not German-ish dudes on there, and they're kicking butt.
yeah.
Senna Aegis, he's still coming around, but dude can ride, and he's up there. When he won a race, I think, if I remember correctly, at Silverstone, or he got a podium up there. But it's like, dude's riding really well, and Manu Gonzalez is riding out of his mind right now. But
I think that might be the definition of the three-prong approach when you have a good team, good bike, and a good rider.
yeah,
But you take one of those prongs out of that equation and it doesn't go right. And I think like Joe Roberts rode for them, right, for a season. And
no, he rode for Intel Trans.
Oh, it's Alan Intel's friends, yeah. And I think he's kind of like shows the showcase of like when all those parts and pieces aren't working and functioning 100%, then there's no chance, right, for you to be out in the front and competing.
Yeah. And so won.
They've got the perfect marriage.
Yeah, Bastianini won on that bike. Joe's like, hell yeah, I'm going to go on that team, and then gel with them. Because they're all Italian, with an Italian rider, and then this American shows up, and it's not working. Like,
it's not
Joe was nowhere to be found. Jumps back on the American racing bike and immediately starts doing better.
Yeah.
So,
the other thing too, I think on that race that was pretty like astounding was Aaron went from like 22nd on the grid to finishing, and where did he finish at the end of the race?
Third.
Like ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. And Joe Roberts came from 20th and finished 6th.
Yeah.
So
that progression on there was like that was amazing. I was the whole time I was watching the race, I was like, okay, this is entertaining in the front half. And I just watched these other riders just make their way from the bottom half of the grid all the way up to the top. And that was just like that's skill, that's patience, just like, and it was just like, man, if they just qualified better, what would this race look like at the end of the day? But unfortunately, we didn't get that. But it was still great from a fan perspective to watch them just destroy the majority of the field and throw out just impressive laps.
Yeah, they were in watching Joe mix it up. He was running fast lap times, and there was a lot of guys who Celestino Vietti had another bad race. We got who else was out of that race? Philip Salach, who's hit and miss. Bo Bensnyder's been pretty solid for a while. Was it Bo? No.
Yeah, you're talking about the Belgian.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's had some good. I think again, like some maturity in the seat and some more seat time with that kid. I think like we'll start to see him kind of develop his racecraft to get a little bit better.
Barry Baltus, Bo Bensnyder's on the. He just split with the MV Agusta team in Super Sport. It's Barry Baltus, number 7. That dude's riding really well.
Yeah,
and he's on that Fantic Racing team with Aaron Canet, and I think. He was good with 2 races ago. That the kid was on it. He was right there. And Diego that kid, I think they're already looking at him for GP.
As they rightfully should.
Yeah, and that was the discussion we were having. Is like, with Fermin Aldeguer getting picked up from Moto2 before the season even started, Ducati's like, we want this kid. And all these riders, and you look at them, you're like, who's going to be the next MotoGP star? I mean, Fabio Quartararo was on arguably the worst bike. Well, no, I would say the NTS was the worst bike, but he was on the speed up, won one race at Catalunya, and then Yamaha's like, yep, get that guy. Like, what do they see that we don't see as fans? Like a baseball scout, right? That just, what's the intrinsic value of X is going to show you that he's going to be good. Like that, Sam Lowe's rode that speed up bike and was actually really good on it for the most part. He rode the Grassini Calyx and he rode the speed up bike, and then other guys just really struggled on it, but Fabio managed to win that one race on that bike, and then that was it. They were like, "Oh, get him."
Here's my perspective on this one, right? And again, just from a fan perspective, and just being around the paddock a long time, right? I think you've been around the paddock a long time. You've come across fast racers, and you're like, "Hey, what are you doing over here? Like, what are you doing?" And they're like, "I don't know. Like, it's more gas, less brake." And you're like, "Well, that doesn't really translate. Like, what do you actually do?" And those riders, right? They're fast. They make their way through club racing, and they hit this wall. They get to this point where their talent has reached the pinnacle of their riding, right? And they don't know exactly what they're doing. They don't know how to translate that. And I think there has to be something to be said that the ability for a rider at that skill level has the understanding of what are they doing, how are they doing it, and can they translate that into a crew chief, a suspension technician, the electronics technician, and saying, like, I don't like this. Well, what do you mean you don't like that, right? And so I think part of that interview process that they're really kind of looking at, like, does this person actually understand, right? Like, because we've all seen those people in the paddock, like time and time again. They're like, more gas, less brake. You're like that, like they don't change a single clicker on their bike when they go from one track to the next. They're just like, I show up, I get on, I throw a leg over it, and I try and go as fast as I possibly can. And then all of a sudden they hit that wall where now they're chasing after tenths of a second, and they have no concept of how to even get there. And then they get burnt out and they wash out and they go, they're like, I don't know what to talk to, like the suspension guy at the race track, right? Like we go and talk to the Owens guy and like, I can't go faster. Well, what's the bike doing? I don't know. I just go fast. Right. Yeah. And so I think that part of that development that those teams are looking at is, can that person translate what's going on in the bike from one turn to the next, to the next, and the next? And if they can articulate that, it's not just like going fast. Now it's like, I don't like this. This feels good. What does that mean? How do I translate that? And those things, like I think that's what they're evaluating a lot, because fast can be fast, but if you don't understand what fast is and you can't articulate what fast is, what are you going to do with that? Right. I think Marquez is a good example of, like, that dude knows exactly how every square inch of his bike needs to be set up and knows how to talk about it. Like you see it, like you could see it, like the progression he makes in a weekend. He's not doing that on him. If he just goes in there and says it's not fast enough,
yeah,
they're just going to go like, what does that mean? Like, I don't get it. Right. So I think that there's a lot of that we don't see that gets done in the behind the scenes, that the racer IQ has to be really high. And if it's not there, and I maybe that's probably, like, I think there might be something to be said about that with Aaron, right? Like everybody's talking about, like, oh, it's his tattoos and he can't get they don't want to put him on the grid. GP is going to make money regardless, right? Like they're not going to make less money because he's got neck tattoos. Maybe his racer IQ is just not high enough to develop into MotoGP.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I know he was always talking about with the Dicky Bow thing, and he hit it for so long. why until he won a race, and then he couldn't win a race, so he still came out with it. But it was, you know, he's a scrappy dude, and I think sometimes he overrides the bike, which causes him heartache and crashes and all that stuff. And that mentality is where you get yourself in trouble because you're breaking machinery and you're not getting to the finish line and collecting those points. Because when you look at the season, you got to collect points. I know that there's that mentality where you got to, if I'm not leading the race, then it's win it or bin it or whatever. But at the end of the day, you got that's points lost that you can get momentum and maybe riding, a little bit reserved, just trying to get the bike home. You might actually start pushing and learn something later on in the race that you didn't know previously because maybe you're win it and bin it and just keep crashing and then you never get to that point. Like,
Yeah.
you never see what happens to the bike in the race because you have all these practice sessions, but you never really know. So I just think that's one of those deals where, yeah, talking to them, seeing how they talk to the technician, seeing how they communicate with how what the bike is doing, and how they work with the crew chief, because I know some crew chiefs and riders don't have the same lingo where the words don't mean the same thing. So I know, who is it? Chip Spalding, who does YCRS. Back when he was, working with the Aprilia KWS team, and they had Chaz Davies and Ben Thompson and stuff. Chip would actually be the intermediary between the crew chief and the rider because he could somehow articulate things that the rider's saying and translating it and putting it into crew chief speak.
I was going to say the great translator from
Yeah.
rider to,
And like John Hopkins, I'm sure had something to do with Joe Roberts being able to, kind of help him along in Moto2. And there's those riders. Robertino Pietri was over at Italtrans for a while. Xavi Flores is helping Blake Davis. Blake Davis had a big step. Same thing. So when you're looking at these guys, it's like, how do they communicate? What do they do? And, I think there's just, I think part of it is like the team sees something, just one little thing, and they're like, oh, that's something not a lot of people know how to do, and we need to capitalize on that. So I guess you got a fan on here.
Yeah. One of the guys I ride with on a regular basis.
Nice.
Benji.
So I don't know, man. The next guy obviously is Diego Moreira. Ethan Guevara is coming along on that Blue Crew bike, and they're using the Boscos Guru frame. Jake Dixon's out.
Yep.
He's gone. Who else is leaving Moto2? Yeah, I don't see anybody. It's funny seeing Jorge Navarro back. That's just an oddball to me. It's like, dude was so promising back in the day. He would always have these like standout rides and then crash his brains out. And it was like, And then he goes to World Supersport, looked really good, and then same thing happened. So it's like, either that dude's got a lot of money behind him or everybody's just a sucker. I don't know.
There's got to be a lot of money. I'm going to put that on there. I don't think that teams are willing to gamble unless you come with the right check for that seat in some of those instances.
Oh, it is. Daniel Munoz is still in for Chan on Chu or Dennis on Chu.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I just don't see really anybody else standing out. I think all the rest of the dudes are just going to hang around. Adrian Huertas is still trying to figure things out. Guy came straight from winning the championship and got the Moto2 ride. And then, I think it's just going to be, in these they're just going to get log jammed. All these Moto3 guys come up.
Yeah, that kid that just won the championship. I don't know if you watched that. I decided to do the opposite of Dustin since I was fit.
You watch Moto3?
I actually watch Moto3. No, I love all the content that I can get, regardless of, like I said, I try and get as much as I can. I watch, practices and qualifying and all the races and stuff like that. But this last weekend, man, like the Moto3 was. Here's my synopsis of Moto3. Like there is some riders in there that have some really, really natural racecraft that is just amazing to watch. Like they were slicing and dicing, and the people were like, some of those riders were really placing the bike where they necessarily needed to put it. They were waiting for the other rider to throw it into a turn. They were like, yeah, you can do that, but I'm going to get you on the exit. You're throwing away on the entry, and even though we're both on little bikes, like there's only so much you can do to with corner speed, right? So that was kind of amazing. But the other side of it was like the bin it or win it mentality, right? Like you're either first or you're last, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like some of those kids got to do a little bit of growing up, because it's going to hurt harder the older they get, and the further they go up, the ranks, the faster it's going to get. They're going to hit the ground hard. I think that one kid broke his leg that high sided, it's amazing to see those kids, bounce off the ground and get back up. Like, I don't think any of us could do that anymore.
Yeah.
Thankfully they're young enough that they bounce quite effectively.
Yeah.
But
for sure,
there is a definite demarcation between some riders in that group that have racecraft and some of them that are just slinging it. And that's hard to watch for me.
Yep. It looks like the KTM kid, and the 6 Squadra Corsa. Awesome. Yeah, I don't know any of these guys anymore because I just don't have time to watch it. And Dennis Foggia is still in Moto3, which is sad. That poor kid. That is sad. That he was like the promising kid from the BR46, and then got to Moto2, and so. Oh, John Righty, I'm sorry, buddy. I did it for all us East Coasters, pal, because I know 9:30 is a stretch for a lot of us, and I know Trevor is probably like, man, I get to start at 7:30. This is awesome. So it's all good. Yeah, we just pretty much wanted to throw this sucker together, and it's all good, dude. Don't worry about it. We just have our chat and everything, and then we'll get it all the afterplays, because our live viewer numbers are scary low, and we're here to chat, and this is all about the conversation that we're extending the conversation we had at the track at Roebling. So
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I said. You're in Nashville, so you started at 7:30. Because we started at 8:30 our time. So, yeah, Jordan wants to know what time is it there. He's on the East Coast. He's up north. So,
yeah, Ricky and I were joking about that last time. It was like the only thing that sucks is the 9:30 start. So we didn't have to do that this time.
Yeah, I'm going to take full advantage of being able to start earlier because of that. It's a little bit of a bummer because my kids have soccer, and they get home. Soccer starts crazy enough at like 5:30 for my daughter, or 6:40, 6:30, 6:45, and I'm like, dude, this kid, like, we have to get the kids up at 5:50 in the morning. Jeez. To get them to school, because they got to be at school at like 7:10. So it's like they get up early, so we have to get to bed at pretty early too. So this is nice for me because I'm tired. So when are you going to the last of the pit race weekends this
I'm
weekend?
I'm not like it like the it's it's depressing is that I have not made that trip up there since they put the like I've been to old pit race like old
Oh,
Beaver way
yeah,
back in
yeah.
the day and turned many laps there. And just a timing perspective, I've never been able to go up there since the expansion. I remember talking to the owner when we first went up there. We did like the first track day since they took ownership when it was still Beef Run. They hadn't changed the signage, nothing. They had no idea what they were doing. Like, it's an interesting story. They bought it because they race Dodge Vipers and they wanted a place to go and turn laps by themselves. And they were like, you could turn this into like an event, area. And then like the go-kart nationals really kind of pushed their weight in there because they have a great go-kart
That
track.
go-kart track is sick.
Yeah. And so like the second weekend I went up there, still on the old Beeve Run complex, they had a nationals there, and NASCAR rigs are showing up there with like 50 go-karts in it while they're procuring young talent at a single digit age on that track, right? But they never had the intent that they were going to like host race events, track days, any of that stuff. But then they were like, well, now we're in it, so now we're going to build this new complex. And yeah, it sucks. Like, I saw that announcement come across and I was like, crap, like I never made it. But like we were
Yeah,
talking about before, it's a 13-hour drive for me now, right?
yeah. Now it is. Now that you're in North Carolina,
Yeah. So,
um,
but
it
yeah, sucks I'm not going to be able to say I turn laps on that complex, and sucks for everybody else that's into motorsports that aren't never going to get the
yeah.
second chance or the third chance or whatever. So
I'm so glad I went up there last year with Arma
yeah,
and got to turn some laps. Very little laps. I think I totaled 11 or 13 laps was the total amount of I got around there. So I didn't get a lot of time to put things together, but I managed a third place out of my Sound of Thunder 2 race. So I was pretty stoked with that. That
so
was
speaking of that, it seems like Arma's got like a really good thing going. I mean, like there's a lot of activity, and like they seem like their events are putting a lot of bikes on grid. They have a lot of spectators are showing up. They seem like they're kind of switched on with what the products that they're putting out there. I haven't been
yeah.
there, but I know a lot of people that are starting to migrate in that direction and start doing, they're slinging a couple events together that turned into like, hey, let's try and see if we can get a season out of this. They, I
Yeah.
don't know what's different about them, but
Well, the classes are totally different, but they're geared towards more European type bikes with the newer ones because of the twins and the triples.
yeah,
So there you go, right there. It's like, okay, well, who's got money to pay for all that? I know Pan American Superbike was doing the Euro class, which was cool, and I think they had a really good format. I just, it sucks that they are been struggling with the insurance thing or whatever, but you know, Arma Arma has like a cult following because you go to Arma race weekend, it is packed.
yeah,
Like we went to CMP for my birthday while my wife was out of town, and I'd never seen it that packed. Well, I raced last year, and then we went this year, and it like every year it's slam packed. People are in the grass on the back end by the concession stand. You go to a Ware race or a CCS race, it ain't that packed. I mean, this was wall to wall motorcycles. Everybody's in the dirt, like it was crazy. And Barber Vintage Fest is an insane weekend. They just had it last weekend. Um, they have that Pro Cup Challenge race. Stefano won it on a 749 RS.
it's
Crazy.
amazing.
And Taylor Knapp was riding a Daytona or a Street Triple 765. He got second, I believe, and then can't remember who got third. But I was talking to Jeff May about it because he was like, "Well, they didn't announce. They did a poor job marketing that race because I don't know if they have the money for it or not, but they dropped the announcement in like September, the worst time because, you know, all the guys that are trying to show up, they usually need to put money together and all that stuff. Like Jeff was talking about, he was, you know, he was trying to get, was hoping it would be enough money because then he could get Buell behind it and he could get his bike out there and all that stuff, and didn't have enough time. So, you know, for the rest of like everybody in kind of that supports that club, it's a great club. They do a good job with their events. They, you know, they run essentially it's a doubleheader weekend.
Yeah.
So, you know, their prices are actually fairly decent. I thought I was going to be paying more, and it's about, you know, it's probably maybe a little bit better than Wera on prices. You know, maybe a little bit more on the initial race, but it's still wasn't bad. It's just the Vintage Fest was like entry fees and all that stuff was almost $600 to stay, camp, all that power, and then your entry fees and practice and all that because you got to pay for practice every day, and they start practice on Thursday. Yeah,
I saw
I
that.
think no, they start practice on Friday. They start practice on Friday because I rolled in on Thursday, so they start practice Friday, racing Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, I say like my only real experience in you know in the racing and the club side is Azra, and I think they've done a great job, and they've continued to mature that product over and over and over again. The changes that Alex and team have done to kind of advance that club sport, I think has been great. You know, registration is seamless transaction, tech is seamless, and timing and scoring, you know, barring the first event they ever had when they introduced it, right? That was, I got screwed out of a place because they didn't have manual timing and scoring, and electronic failed, and everybody was,
oh dang,
this person fit, you know, but you know that.
Uh-huh.
You know, I knew where I finished at the end of the day, so I didn't care. I was like, all right,
Yeah,
I'm not
whatever.
going to sit here and argue about it, and I'm not going to have an argument with somebody else that you gave a piece of plastic to. It's not worth it to me. And but since then, it's just gotten progressively better and better, and you see that product continue to mature. And but I, you know, looking at the pictures from ARMA events, it's pretty amazing to see a a club, you know, event that has that much participation on there. It's shocking. I wish we could see that, you know, at some of the nationals at that same kind of volume of participation. I think it's getting there. We're starting to see, you know, certain races that you're getting a pretty good amount of fandom that's showing up. Some of there, so it's getting better. But yeah, I would just like to see it continue to get better and better. But like I said, like my impression so far with Azra, like just watching them mature that product as they took ownership of that from CCS and turned it into what it is now, is pretty impressive what they've been able to do. And for us that go out there and do that club racing thing, it's great that we even have those opportunities. And so we got to support those clubs and go out there and either fan spectate, or if you're lucky enough to put tires on the grid, by all means, because that's the only way they stay alive, is that you continue to show up and support them. And
for Trevor, ARMA doesn't have a hard card license, so that you don't just flip it out. You do all the registration online, and you don't have to do any of that. And then CCS had a hard card that was printed, not laminated. Where I think is the only one that still laminates it, but. Yeah, man. Well, when's your next time on track then? Apparently Benji wants to go to NC Bike.
Yeah, I think NC Bike is not the greatest track, and I have a love-hate relationship with that. Like, I hate, like, CCS did, or Azra did a race weekend there, and I raced there, and I was like, it's not a racing racetrack. It's a great learning track, but it's not a great racing track. And I remember talking to one of my buddies that was trying to break in his RS660 for Moto America, Brad, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to go and turn some laps with Azra at NC Bike," and I was like, "You're going to hate it. Like, it's not a good racing track. You're not going to get any, like, you're not going to get any data from racing, right?
No.
And I was like, so just know that you're going to get good data for like every single turn condition that you can possibly get, but that's about it. So you go out there, it's super easy and convenient to get there. And I think Benji and I are going to go and turn some laps again. I think with N2, I think. And yeah, and see how that goes. Benji's on he's on a new platform this year. He just picked up a late model R6, and it's bone stock, and he is slinging that thing like it's fully built, right? Like it's pretty impressive to see a guy that, like, he did the right thing. He's like, I'm gonna work out all the kinks of what I don't like on the bike before I start modifying. So it's 100% stock and
That's awesome.
Full send.
Yeah, I was trying to convince my buddy Neil to keep his Street Triple RS, and we put the bodywork on there. You saw that bike,
Yeah.
And now he's talking about doing the old swappy swap with a guy with a 2015 R1 with a salvage title. I think people seen it out there, but I'm like, come on, man, just stick to the stocker and just try to ride the wheels off of it, and then when you save up some money, you can go do that.
Yeah,
just like I did. So cool.
How about you? What's your next adventure?
I think I'm going to try to hit up the podium Pirelli Day at Roebling in November. So
I will see you there. And
yeah, I gotta get a date with Godin, and I was thinking probably this weekend to see if he could. I got my shift sensor finally installed. I just got to put some Loctite on there, button up all the bolts, and then tighten up the exhaust, and we'll go over there and see if we can throw it on the dyno and get the thing tuned up. So,
well, I'll throw the offer out there, right? Like, I've got 2 bikes, so if the plan doesn't come together and you need something to ride for that weekend, I'll let you borrow one of them. So, like I said, you got to make payments where payments are due.
For sure. Well, awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you stepping in. It was a great conversation, awesome insight. Really, it's always good chatting with you. It's our first time at Roebling. So again, thank you for everybody watching. Really appreciate it. I know this was a little bit of different format, and Dustin's quips are definitely missed. And we all wish him well this weekend, because I know I'll be watching World Superbike, and hopefully we'll see Dustin out there with his camera doing his thing, because he said to do all that fun stuff for Richard, and hopefully they do well. I know Bobby's probably still kicking himself from a couple weekends ago, and hopefully he gets that out of his mind and goes to town on Estoril. So
I hope they have like good results. And I think that, I think Richard kind of said it last week, where he was like, hey, like, we know we're not going to go in there and punch people's faces in, but we're going to go out there, collect data, get the experience, get the presence out there. And I hope they get all of that. I hope that, they turn every lap that they possibly can out there and have a good time. And I hope Dustin, just soaks it all in, because we all wish we were there doing the same thing, right? So
I know. I think Peter Strack is going to be there too, because he put up some money for the trip. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks again, Matt, and thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Time to end the stream.